The person who owes you an apology is probably waiting for you to thank them. That sentence feels wrong, but for a specific type of person, it is their core reality. By the end of this, you will understand the internal operating system that makes the words, "I'm sorry," impossible to say, and you'll recognize why trying to get an apology from them is like asking a statue to bleed. You're demanding something the material itself is incapable of producing. And chances are, this psychological blueprint is active in someone you deal with every single day. For most of us, an apology is a tool. It's a mechanism for social repair. It acknowledges a shared reality, validates the other person's experience, and begins to mend a torn connection. It is an act of strength, requiring a stable sense of self to admit a momentary failure. An apology says, "My action was wrong, but I am not fundamentally wrong as a person. I am secure enough to admit this flaw." This requires a solid foundation of self-worth. The non-apologizer has no such foundation. For them, the self is a precariously balanced tower of cards. Their sense of worth is conditional, fragile, and desperately protected. In this context, an apology is a catastrophic threat. It is an admission of fundamental defectiveness. Admitting one mistake, one crack in the facade, feels like it will bring the entire structure of their identity crashing down. The thought of apologizing triggers a primal, overwhelming sense of shame. A healthy person experiences guilt, which is focused on the action, "I did a bad thing." Shame is focused on the self. "I am a bad thing." Guilt motivates repair. Shame motivates hiding, denial, and attack. When confronted with a mistake, their internal system bypasses guilt entirely and floods with existential shame. The psychological pain is so intense, their brain's primary directive becomes to make it stop at any cost. And the fastest way to stop the pain is to reject the premise. The mistake never happened, or it wasn't a mistake, or if it was your fault. This cognitive armor protects them from feeling shame, but that armor has a secondary function: to project blame. The brain of a non-apologizer is a master of cognitive distortion. These are automatic mental filters that reshape reality to protect the ego. They don't just refuse to apologize, their mind actively prevents them from ever reaching the conclusion that an apology is necessary. The first tool is externalizing blame. Their actions are always a reaction to someone else's provocation. "I wouldn't have yelled if you hadn't pushed my buttons," or "I was late because you distracted me this morning." The locus of control is always outside themselves. They are a passive victim of circumstances and other people's failings. Nothing is ever their fault because in their internal narrative, they lack true agency. They only react. The next tool is minimizing the impact. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this? It was a joke." This tactic invalidates your feelings. By reframing their hurtful action as insignificant, they simultaneously frame your emotional response as an overreaction. You become the problem. Your sensitivity is the issue. Their behavior was perfectly acceptable. This is often paired with an appeal to their own intentions. "I didn't mean to hurt you." For the non-apologizer, intent is a magical shield. They believe their good intentions should completely absolve them of the actual negative consequences of their actions. Your pain is irrelevant because their heart was pure. The reality of your experience is erased by the fiction of their intent. They edit the tape instantly. Before the memory can even set, these are automatic defensive thoughts. But for some, this defense becomes an offense. It becomes a tool used to control you. When the refusal to apologize becomes a pattern, it evolves from a defense mechanism into a strategy for interpersonal control. It is a subtle, powerful form of manipulation. By withholding an apology, they create a relational crisis that you are then forced to solve. This shifts the entire burden of emotional labor onto you. They broke the connection, and now they wait for you to fix it. This puts you in an impossible position. You have two choices. You can drop the issue to keep the peace. In doing so, you implicitly accept their version of events. You silently agree that you were overreacting, that your feelings were invalid, or that it was somehow your fault. You absorb the injustice. Your other option is to escalate. You continue to insist on your reality, on the harm that was done. Now, you are cast in the role of the aggressor. You are the one creating conflict. You are unreasonable, hysterical, or holding a grudge. They have successfully maneuvered you into becoming the villain of the story. They remain the calm, rational victim of your emotional outburst. This dynamic is a hallmark of high conflict personalities. It is a strategy seen on a spectrum, from frustratingly stubborn partners to individuals with pronounced narcissistic or antisocial traits. On the extreme end, this is how they keep their partners, children, and colleagues in a state of perpetual confusion and self-doubt. It's a form of gaslighting. Over time, the victim starts to question their own perceptions. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am remembering it wrong. Maybe I did cause it. This erosion of your reality is the goal. A person who trusts their own judgment is difficult to control. A person who is constantly questioning their own sanity is much easier to manage. Critics might suggest this is merely a difference in communication styles or a person's discomfort with vulnerability. And in isolated incidents, that can be true. The data, however, is the pattern. When every disagreement, regardless of the topic or the stakes, results in the same dynamic of blame shifting and invalidation, it's a symptom of a deeper structure. A structure designed to preserve their power at the expense of your reality. This creates a carefully managed external world, built on your compliance. But what is it actually like to live inside that fortress? What story do they tell themselves every morning? To the non-apologizer, they are the hero of their own story. Always. Or, if not the hero, they are the noble, misunderstood victim. They inhabit a world of perpetual self-justification. Their internal monologue is a constant narration of their rightness. Their brain's self-serving bias is turned up to maximum volume. They remember their successes with perfect clarity, attributing them entirely to their own skill and intelligence. Their failures, on the other hand, are blurry, vague events caused by bad luck, betrayal, or the incompetence of others. This is an ongoing, automatic process of memory curation. They don't consciously decide to lie about the past. Their brain does it for them, filtering and editing incoming data to ensure it always supports the central thesis: I am good, I am right, I am blameless. Imagine a courtroom in your mind where you are the judge, the jury, and your own defense attorney. And anyone who criticizes you is the prosecution. The verdict is a foregone conclusion. Any evidence of your wrongdoing is ruled inadmissible. Any witness to your mistakes is declared unreliable. The prosecution's arguments are twisted and reframed until they sound absurd. This is the internal reality they live in. It is a sealed cognitive loop because they never have to confront their own fallibility. They never have to feel the discomfort that leads to growth. Their worldview is perfectly coherent, perfectly stable, and perfectly wrong. It is an echo chamber of one, where the only voice they hear is their own, telling them how right they are. This internal reality is perfectly insulated from feedback. But what is the price of that perfect insulation over a lifetime? The ultimate cost of never being wrong is staggering. The fortress they build to protect their fragile ego becomes a prison. By rejecting all negative feedback, they shut down the primary mechanism for learning and adaptation. They cannot learn from their mistakes because they have edited the memory to show they never made any. This leads to profound personal stagnation. They repeat the same destructive patterns in relationship after relationship, in job after job, always baffled as to why things keep going wrong for them. They are surrounded by the wreckage of their own behavior, seeing themselves as the sole survivor of a series of inexplicable disasters. The inability to apologize makes true intimacy impossible. A genuine connection is built on vulnerability, on the ability to see and be seen, flaws and all. The non-apologizer cannot tolerate being seen. They require admiration, agreement, and compliance. Their relationships are transactional. They are surrounded by people who have learned to walk on eggshells, people who have grown tired of fighting for their own reality, or people who stay for their own complicated reasons. but the connection is shallow. It lacks the trust and resilience that can only be forged through rupture and repair. You've seen this. The person whose friendships all seem to have a one-year expiration date, the family member who is perpetually at the center of some new drama, the colleague who leaves a trail of burned bridges wherever they go. In their lifelong quest to never appear weak, they have sacrificed all opportunities for the genuine strength that comes from accountability. The walls they built for protection have sealed them off from the world. So when you are waiting for an apology that will never come, you are misunderstanding the situation. The refusal is a symptom. The underlying condition is a fundamental inability to tolerate the reality of being an imperfect, fallible human being. An apology requires a core of self-worth solid enough to withstand a crack. Theirs is hollow. They are brittle. The person you see in front of you is a carefully constructed character, and their prime directive is to protect that character from the truth at all costs. An apology would be an act of self-destruction. You're not waiting for an apology from a difficult person. You're waiting for a person to be built who is capable of giving one, and the blueprints for that person are locked in a room they'll never admit exists. This deep-seated need to be right explains why some people argue in circles, turning every discussion into a fight for survival, which is a completely different kind of exhaustion.